The Eagles defeat the Green Bay Packers and earn themselves another game at Lincoln Financial Field this year. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Philly Sports Now, a Philly fan podcast. My name is Zach. With me with Andrew, and we're back to talk all things Philly sports. Now, this is your special post-game playoff Monday episode. We're going to be doing, we'll call them playoff Monday episodes. It'll be a little shorter. We're just talking the post-game. And yeah, we're going to have that on this. You'll have your regular episode of Philly Sports Now coming out on Fridays. And I'm saying all this hoping that there's one more Monday that we have this conversation at least. You know, every playoff game, you're in it to win it. But the Eagles just defeated the Green Bay Packers in Philadelphia. The final score 10-22. Your Birds winning, of course. Not a pretty game, which I think we've all pretty much came in expecting not a pretty game because of Hurts being out of the saddle for a few weeks. I know we talked about having much higher scores in our predictions in the last episode, and I think you and I were a little more optimistic on everyone's condition going into this game, and Hurts was definitely on the slower side than I would have liked. But he did a good job. I am a little, he got hit a lot today. Is really what I'm trying to get to right now. He got hit a lot, and I really hope that doesn't translate into long-term injury, and that it's really just he needed to get some bruising to get back into the field. You know what I mean? Like, I really hope that's all it is because he went down quite a bit, quite a few times. There's one time where Barkley had his whole leg twisted from that run, and he got off the field for a few plays. Came back in, obviously had a tremendous game. Had that drive at the end where he literally could have broken away to score a touchdown, and he takes a knee instead because he knows it's the smart play to just run out the clock. It was a long, hard fought game. And when we went into half at only a 10-point lead, man, there's so many things. First and foremost, though, just happy to have won. You know, the Packers are a good team. I think Jordan Love actually exposed himself as one of the bigger flaws on the Packers team right now, which I think is an interesting take. But I'll shout out that to Nate for talking that with me on text a little earlier. But it's I think he kind of gave a lot up in that game. And I'm happy that the Eagles defense was able to take advantage of it. Three interceptions, huge, absolutely huge. The Eagles defense stood up today like crazy. Zach Bond just absolutely earning another year on his contract, I hope, because man, he was great.
Oh, he better be re-signed.
I know, it was a great game. It was a great game. And Andrew, I don't know what stands out to you, like first and foremost there.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's what we talked about coming in was, I mean, a very similar team that lives off the defense. They love the run game as well, and I think you saw that today. And it turned out who had the better defense, and the better defense this evening was the Eagles. I mean, they created turnovers, and you mentioned Hurts, and I think that's the biggest thing with Jalen Hurts is, and you mentioned the hits. In a way, I'm actually the hits to me is a positive note. I mean, in the sense that it means he fully did come back healthy. Like if he was still feeling some of that concussion or feeling that your injury still, like they're not running him that much. They're keeping him away from that. And I think that's where that was a little bit of a positive was that to me tells me he's pretty healthy. And in the end, while yes, it wasn't efficient, he did the job in the sense of he didn't turn the ball over. And that turned to be the big difference in this game. You have Packers turned the ball over 4 times, especially on that opening kickoff. So that to me right there is, and that's what makes the good teams great is when the defense can pick them up. And that's exactly what the defense did for this Eagles team. Even the few drives the Packers had in Eagles territory, they held them to a field goal on the one and then a missed field goal on the other. So again, it just, the defense stepped up and a lot of it, the recipe we've seen throughout the season, right? The defense carries the team throughout the first part of the game while the offense kind of feels out where the game is, and then you control it through the clock in the run game. And that's what you did. The defense did their job, and while the offense struggled the entire first half, you threw a shutout there in the first half. So again, the defense did its job, and credit to Darius Slay coming up with a big interception there. Zach Bond, as you mentioned, he had the interception, and Quinyon Mitchell getting his first career interception today too. So just a lot of positives all around.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I saw before the game. I think they were talking about it actually on the Eagles pregame that Slay was X amount of games without an interception, and it was like he was just due for one, right?
Yeah, I forget it was. Yeah, it was his bold prediction of the game. Slay interception. I always
Yeah,
do
it
that bold
was
prediction.
it
Yeah,
Jaws or was it someone else? I think
it
it was
was either
someone
him
else.
or Ruben Frank. I can't remember, but yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It might have
I
been
just
Ruben. Yeah, I had it on when I was doing some home renovations. I had the first I had the Bills game on, and then I had the Eagles pregame show. Which, by the way, quick commentary on. I thought for sure the Broncos were gonna upset the Bills. I that first half, it was such a dirty game, and then the second half starts, and it's like, oh, this is the Bills team you expected to see the whole game.
yeah, I think you kind of start seeing that um, rookie for Bo Nix kind of kick in there, and I think that's kind of where they that happened. But they got off that first was it first touchdown on the first drive, went up 7-0, held them to a field goal, and yeah, it looked like they were in business.
Yeah, it did. And now we have the speaking of rookie quarterbacks, we have the Washington Tampa Bay game is happening right now as we record this. So if Tampa Bay wins, they're only up by 3 right now. Second quarter is just starting. If Tampa Bay wins, Eagles will play Tampa Bay next weekend. Any indication what day that would be? I think we have no idea, right?
Obviously, with them doing Monday night games now, they won't put the Monday night winner on Saturday because that'd just be too short of rest. So the Monday night winner is going to be on Sunday. So that's the way to look at it because they always do their Saturday games. Now I'm not sure if they do like AFC on Saturday, if they do an NFC on Sunday, or
I
if it's
think they'll
going to be one and
do
one.
because
So
there'll
I'm
be
not sure how
4
that.
games, right? So it'll probably be one of each of
Yes,
those days.
yeah. So if that's the case, if it's one of each, depending on so like then the winner of the Rams Vikings will be on Sunday. So if we
Mm.
end up playing the Buccaneers, will probably be Saturday, which for me will stink.
You working Saturday? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we usually have basketball games on Saturday. So
I actually have a very busy Saturday this coming week, so Saturday would suck for me as well.
so I would 100% need a night game. If we get the night game, perfectly fine.
I
I'll be
don't
home by the
even
night game.
I don't even know. I don't know. But
But
let's
yeah,
not talk
so
about it again. Let's focus on our on the
but yeah,
game that we have seen. So I mean, Barkley getting over 100 yards. I know they mentioned it in the broadcast at some point in the fourth quarter when he crossed over that 100 yards mark. But even that, like for how slow the offense seemed the entire game, he still goes and gets 119, nearly 120 yards. Like it just speaks a lot to how strong Barkley is on this team. And like I said, when I saw him twist his ankle or his leg or whatever it was, man, I hope they shoved him right in an ice bath and they're like, you better not let that swell and you better let that rest for the next 2 days, sir.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he he always finds a way to get 100, right? Even there's a few games too in the season that it was just like, oh no way he's getting to that mark, and he finds a way to do it.
It's just the
Eh,
proof that if he played in that last game, he would have broke the record. Like if there was
um,
any doubt in anyone's mind, there it is. Right? There it is. Uh yeah, and then I mean, look, Hurts, like we said, didn't have a tremendous game, but he did what he needed to do. And no interceptions. I don't like no turnovers at all on his part. Like I actually did we have any turnovers? I don't
no, and
think
that's the big thing is that's what he needs to do. He needs to just keep the turnovers, and I mean that's when he kind of gets that's when he gets into a bad rhythm is when he makes that. And credit to him since the bye week, he's been fantastic in his decisions on where he wants to throw the ball. And I mean, yeah, no one wants to sit here and call him a game manager, but if he's not 100% and there's games like this, he's got to become a game man. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if
no.
you game managers go out, I mean, they're win, and that's the big thing is just keeping the turnovers to a minimum because you know the defense is going to create them.
My thing is, it just, I mean, obviously, we just talked about Barkley getting 100, nearly 119 yards. Like, this game was just so clearly a running game that you didn't really see a lot of receptions. And I'm actually surprised looking at this that Smith had more yards than Goddard because I guess Smith had that really long catch, that one reception, if I'm thinking
Yeah, it was like a
correctly.
32-yarder.
Yeah, that's probably what did it then. Because like again, Smith 4 receptions, Goddard 4 receptions. Dotson had more yards than Brown. Like it was kind of a rough game in the receiving side of things, and I really do chalk that up to it being Hurts' first game back, and you don't want to undersell the difficulty of playing against the Green Bay Packers, but it sure does seem like he really did need this as a practice for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, that and I turned to the offense just didn't look strong. I mean, you come out. I mean, think about this: you come out in those first two drives and you put up those 10 points. Hurts was 6 for 6. After that, he was just 7 of 15, and I mean, he went through a stretch. He was 0 for 7, and I think it was a mixture of things. I mean, you had those penalties that killed you on that one drive when you're moving down, and you had back-to-back holding calls on 2 of 3 plays that set you back, and you settle for the field goal. I think it was at that point. You had the one right before halftime. Instead of going getting a field goal, Dallas Goddard gets called for the false start, which pushes them back 5 yards. You're forced to punt there instead of trying to get 3. So, while yeah, I mean, yeah, we can put some of it on Hurts. I mean, just the offense wasn't in sync. There's too many penalties from that group for me today, and that's somewhere you got to fix there going into next week. I mean, you were again, defense did their job to keep you in it, but you're very fortunate that stuff didn't come back to cost you. And I wasn't a giant fan of the play calling either coming out of the gate, and I don't know, it was a weird game because again, like you said, we were up 10-0 at halftime, but it didn't feel like it. Like the vibes just were not there.
I was
Especially
actually going to say not really the play calling, but to kind of give coaching credit where credit's due. I just think it was a very well thought, smartly played game. And I give that credit to Sirianni. I know, like we've said, it was a weird game. It was a rough game. It wasn't a pretty game, but they played well in the sense that they knew what they needed to win. And a great example being like when in the fourth quarter we were up by 2 possessions at least. I think that was when we were up by 9. If I don't know, but we go for the field goal. Yeah, because we were up by
yeah,
9, and we go for the field goal to make it a 12-point lead. Like you didn't need more than a field goal that drive, and they just kept running. They just kept running and running and running, and it was the smart thing to do because you get down there, you get another field goal, you just throw more points on the board, and you take so much time off that clock in that drive. And like I said, I think it was a very well done game. Not pretty, but I got the job done, and I give Sirianni and the coaching staff credit there.
it's the best part about playoff football. It doesn't have to be pretty; just win.
Just gotta win. A win is a
I
win
mean,
is a win, man.
hey, you need 4 of them, right? So you got 1 down, 3 to go.
I love the countdown. Yeah, I get chills when I see the 3 more wins, like that kind of thing. Like I
Is it?
love that talk because it sounds so simple when you put it like that. Just go get 3 more. That's it.
Well, isn't it great too in football when it's just 3? Where every other sport you got to go get 4 in a series, and you win that game 1. And you're like, oh, 3 more in the series, but 12 to get the title.
It's
So
so different. Like baseball example, like for the Phillies, like I remember in the World Series, like when you're in the World Series, I remember being excited because we were doing the countdown. Like, oh, you only need 3 more wins in the World Series, but you really can't do that before that moment, you know? Like, oh,
yeah,
although I do think I remember them being like 12 more wins or how many more wins,
yeah,
Topper?
that's the thing with JT and Topper. It
All
was
right, all
the
right, all
wins.
right. I take back everything I just said because if JTS Stopper how many more wins,
Yeah,
I'm gonna chant it with them.
exactly.
And that's probably
So
where
no,
my
it's
excitement comes from too. Like it's just such a simple thing that just gets everyone going. I'm like
no, yeah,
yelling.
for
I
sure.
need to bring it down a little bit. I'm too close to the mic for the yelling. Without looking ahead, because again, we're trying to wait to see who we're playing. We'll have that full podcast for Friday as usual. But without looking ahead too much, I guess I would say, Andrew, what is the thing you hope to see most improved based off of this game?
I would have to go with the passing game. And again, it's just I didn't like where it was at come today. I mean, again, I know 13 of 21 isn't awful, and he throws for 2 touchdowns, but again, it just didn't. They didn't look in sync, and I get it, first game back, and maybe that's what you're going to credit to. But again, I think it was also Green Bay's got a very good defense. They got one of the better safeties in the game too, so I think you have to give credit to them, and that's what we talked about coming into the game. It was a very similar team, two great defenses, and wear you down into the run game, but. I didn't think Hurts was sharp. And I mean AJ Brown only has 3 targets in the game. That's not a good. That's not good. You were saved on. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we have to shout this play out too. The Dallas Goedert's 2 stiff arm touchdown. I mean,
Oh my
but
God, that was such a beautiful touchdown.
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, he created that touchdown, but
Boom.
yeah, and yeah, he created. But he, my point is, he created that touchdown. I mean, it wasn't a great throw, and I mean, again, he doesn't stiff arm 2 guys like that. Who knows how to drive in? So like, he created that play, and a lot of credit to him. And a guy that's been up and down this year with injuries. Um, he came out ready to go, and he stepped up big there too. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is seeing Hurts get back to, because I clearly think he was shaking off some rust. I mean, it was before Christmas he played last. I think it was the 19th or 20th. So I mean, yeah, he had to get back, and I mean, that first game. You know what this game kind of reminded me of too was that, going back to our Super Bowl winning year, was that Atlanta Falcons game. You know, he had Nick Foles. He had that last game off, and he came in and you won that game 15-10 against Atlanta. He had that last defensive stop. So like that
That was
that
such
was
a
not a
dirty
pretty.
game too. Yeah,
Yeah,
actually.
that was not a pretty game. I mean, so that's what this kind of reminds me of the whole way, especially when 19 to
But that was
10
a
is when I
winning
first.
year, so I'm excited now.
Exactly. Then you got Minnesota next. That's who you won that last. Maybe we'll follow that path. The only
I
difference is we didn't have to buy.
I don't know
But
who I want next. Just put it in front of me. I don't know. Up, touchdown. Wait, who just scored? Uh Update faster. Update faster. Update faster.
so it was the
Washington just
Washington
scored.
Commanders.
So
So someone asked me who I wanted next, and I said honestly, it doesn't matter. Like at this point, and honestly, I said this too, is I feared outside Detroit, obviously. Out of all of our first, like I feared Green Bay more than Washington, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and the Rams.
I
So
agree. I think Green Bay was an extremely difficult first round matchup. And I think
yeah,
as we saw in especially the first half, this could have been a loss. Like this really could have been a loss. But the Eagles are just that good. I think they I I I was not super concerned going into this game, but I was nervous and I feel like all eyes are on Detroit now and you can't overlook whoever comes next, but I think we're capable of winning regardless and just get to Detroit, man.
oh no question, yeah, definitely capable there, and that's why I think this again this team is who I was outside Detroit most scared of, and um, you got a 12-point win out of it. Again, it wasn't pretty, but that's how good this team is. I mean, we're talking about a game that we didn't look our best, and you still won by double digits. You still led the whole way. I mean, the only time it got back to one possession at 16-10. Um, and I think that's where credit this team too, this Eagles team was. We talk about all the offensive struggles, right? But I will say they answered the call when they had to, right? When Green Bay finally got on the board, we answered back, made it 16-3. After they had the field goal, made it one possession. So they answered back, made it 16-10. And then you answered with, I mean, yeah, it wasn't a touchdown, but then you answered with 2 field goals. So you got 19-10 and 22-10. So that is where I will credit this offense is when they needed to step up, they looked like everything was perfectly fine, right? You got the turnover, they looked good early, and they kind of got lackluster there in the beginning or in the middle of the game, and then at the end, when they needed to step up, they did. So I mean, again, you don't want to see it that way. You just want to see them play great the whole game. But
Right.
I mean, again, credit to them and Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni for getting that done.
And that's what I'm
I
saying,
will
dude.
say
Yeah.
two of the best plays in this game. We talked about the Goddard one. That I will credit Josh Jacobs too on that run. I mean, he ended up getting tackled at the 1 yard line, but
Oh
that
my
run,
gosh. Yeah, dude. That run was insane.
it was kind of yeah. You had Goddard, this 2 stiff arms, and he
But
broke.
the,
Then Jacobs broke like 5 tackles. So it's funny those plays, not
Ja-
back to back, but almost pretty much back to back.
but Jacobs was also like, Barkley is hands down, MVP of this team, right? Jacobs is clearly the the MVP of the Packers. And without
Yeah.
Jacobs, like that team is so much less, I'll say, significant, especially with how injured they were going into this game, let alone coming out. They went down hard today, man.
Yeah, they lost two offensive linemen and they lost two receivers. I mean, yeah, and yeah, it was a tough one for the injuries. And luckily for the Eagles, Blankenship came back, and then Darius Slay came back. You mentioned Barkley leaving for a little
Yeah,
bit, but
Eagles got banged up, but everyone got back in. I don't think anyone.
no, except for one, and that's where I was gonna get hit next on it because when you were talking about too on what I want to see improve next week, we got to look at Nakobe Dean's health. He never came back after getting carted off, and then he left the game. He left the locker room in crutches, so that's
Oh
not a
wow.
good sign. But he's basically. I know Zach Bond was the first team All Pro, but Nakobe Dean was basically the captain of that defense or the quarterback, you want to call it, for the defense. So that's concerning going into if he can't go next week on how they're going to do in that play calling in terms of the defensive side. So that's the big thing to look at there because he was the big communicator on that defense. I will say the only thing which would be interesting too off a full week of practice, Burks, who stepped in for Dean, played very well. I mean, he had that one missed tackle on the Jacobs run that we just talked about, but outside that, he filled in nicely. I mean, obviously, he still created turnovers overall on defense, and he didn't give up any too big plays or too many big plays there. So, I mean, we'd see what he do in a full game, but I think they do have a good depth there as we've seen in the past. So,
Depth of this team is unmatched, I
yeah,
think.
no,
That
no, it
that
is.
has been
I mean,
proven.
it's starting to get those Super Bowl vibes again, just in that
I
sense too, because
I yeah.
you, again, it was next man up in that year, and the depth on that team was huge too. But I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love Brandon Graham, but even since Brandon Graham was out, like I thought the defense was going to take a huge hit, and
Dude,
like again, nothing against Graham because I love Graham and he was a fantastic player, but I mean, Vic Fangio has these guys rolling. Like it's next. I mean, and that's what if it gets to it would make us and the Lions fun too. Is they're the same boat. They've had injuries and they're just rolling the next guy in. So like,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of similarities all around the league this year.
It's crazy to think about Graham because I actually when the game started and the broadcast they show you Kevin Burr, I forget his last name. Um but they show
Burkhardt.
Kev and Tom Brady. And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Tom Brady, that's okay." And I thought of I don't know if you saw or if we talked about, but did you see the clip of when Tom Brady was in Philly last this year? Brandon
Yeah.
Graham went to say hi and he did the like shoulder touch to like
Yeah.
he was like I had to do it again. And I just thought that was so funny and I'm thinking of this today before the game and I'm like, "Oh my God, like I forgot Brandon Graham wasn't playing."
Yeah. No. Yeah. It has gotten to that point.
Like
It's
it's
crazy.
sad to say it, but we're the number one defense without him.
Yeah.
Not that he didn't contribute. Not that like we're number one because he's not there. I'm saying like we're still number one without him.
Exactly. No, and that that's where Vangio. I mean, he's a really good coach. Like it's incredible what he's. I mean, how fast he's turned around this defense.
Yeah.
I mean, it really isn't much different than last year's. Outside, you get the two rookies and Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, but like what he's done is just incredible. Yeah.
It is. It is very impressive. And hopefully we just keep seeing him roll. I'm this is it, man. Playoffs are here and we are ready for week 2.
Yeah. No, that's why that's the down part about football though is you gotta wait a whole week before you get to the next game.
Yeah, it's
That's the
better
nice
than
part about
being out
baseball.
though.
What?
Better than being out.
No, that's true.
It's yeah. And on that note, I'm gonna say a quick post game recap of the Penn State Notre Dame game. I just want to say I am still mourning that. I actually think, dude, that might have hurt. That was one of the worst as a fan of something. That loss hurt, and I am a pretty avid like I'll call James Franklin out kind of guy. I think that's pretty clear, and anyone that knows me or has listened to me like knows I'm not a big Franklin supporter. But that being said, this game was not Franklin's fault at all. That game was completely on Drew Aller, and I actually think Franklin did a great game management that day. Like it's pretty wild to see people blame James Franklin. I don't want to go too into it. I just wanted to say my piece that I think that's an insane take The only thing I would have changed as far as like play calling or management or whatever is I think you try and go for the touchdown when it was like 4th and 2 on the goal line, basically. Instead, he takes the points. They keep it tied going into half or tie most of the game, whatever. Like it was a fine call. But if you go for that touchdown, I think you can get it and you can win the game. I don't blame this game on Franklin, though. I think that's an insane take, and I think it's frankly just a stupid take.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. He he called a good game. I mean, there's a reason they were right there at the end. And I mean, you got to throw it on Aller. I mean,
Yeah. I
the
mean, he was
decision.
over his he didn't hit one receiver, which I don't know if that says more about the receiving your receiving core than it does him, but also every big time play that he could have made, he overthrew it. There
Yeah.
was like 3 distinct throws that were like touchdown moments, and he overthrew by like a foot and a half.
Well, just take out the rest of the game. But I mean, the last play, the last offensive play for Penn State. I mean, you everybody knows better than throwing that ball in the middle of the field. You don't take that chance. Like worst case, either take that sack or you throw the ball away. I mean, there's barely any time left,
Yeah, I'd
and
rather.
I've seen people angry for Franklin for being aggressive and not just going to overtime. But it was a tie game. All you needed was a field goal, and you weren't that far away. I have no problem with being aggressive there. I mean, you're not guaranteed to win in overtime. So, I mean, again, you have a veteran quarterback, and it'd be different if he's a freshman, but you have a veteran quarterback there. I mean, you have to put faith in him. Go be aggressive, and you have a senior. Your tight end and Tyler Warren was fantastic too all year. So I mean, and Nick Singleton, like he was a fantastic running. Like you had the pieces to go get 3 points there for the win. So I got no problem being aggressive. You gotta have smart decisions.
I mean, we're talking about a quarterback who was debating entering the NFL draft this year. Like, if you're on that level, you can take you're man enough that you can take some of the blame, which is exactly what's happening here. Like
And
Aller
he
deserves that.
he's been good about it. I feel like from what I've seen, it's not like he's trying to play it off, and I think he said all
No,
the
but
right things.
I just think it's crazy not to
Yeah,
blame feels like such a wrong word to say here, but like it was his credit. It was on his shoulders. I think Franklin did everything right on his end. I think Aller didn't perform, and I think there's nothing else to it. Um, but all right, that's enough of that. I just wanted to I had to get that out because I really don't ever want to talk about it again. But yeah, anything else about the Eagles Packers game, Andrew?
no, I mean I covered all my notes I wrote down during the game.
Sweet. Well,
But
as of right now, Washington winning. If Washington wins, that means we play one of tomorrow's teams. So that would put us on Sunday. So I guess we're kind of cheering for Washington here.
right, but
All
and they got the
right.
ball back too, so they got a chance to extend that lead.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to Philly Sports Now, a Philly fan podcast. You can find us all over social media. And if you haven't already, I should have said this at the start, but thank you for new subscribers. Thank you, everyone, for watching, considering subscribing. It's free, and it's a button right there. Leave a comment. How'd you feel about this game? I know some people were excited about it. I know some people didn't think so. I don't know. But Eagles pull out the win. I'm happy. Andrew's happy. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Zach. That's Andrew. And as always, go Birds. Good night.
Go,